Welcome to Drive for Service, a podcast to inspire higher quality of service. Welcome everybody to episode 2 of Drive for Service. My name is Melania Battison and I'm the head sommelier and wine buyer at Medlar Restaurant in Chelsea in London. And next to me, David O'Connor, the co-owner and restaurant manager at Medlar Chelsea.
Hello everyone.
Today, we're delighted to welcome the very first guest on our show. And David, I think you should introduce our next guest.
Yes, thank you, Melania. Joining us from France today, one of my first managers, Patrick Fischnaller, who now owns his own Michelin-star restaurant, Le Vivier, in Provence. Now, Patrick inspired my career as a young waiter, probably taught me the most about high-quality customer service and how to deliver it, and instilling a discipline and a standard that stays with me today. Yes, so welcome, Patrick. Tell us about your career story from the beginning. We'd love to know.
Melania, David, I'm so pleased to join your podcast.
Thank you.
My career story. So I have to start with the beginning.
Yeah.
Parents owned a restaurant for many years, and I guess, actually our house was above the restaurant. So I really grew up in the restaurants.
And where was this restaurant, Patrick?
Near Lyon.
In Lyon.
In a village called Lausanne near Lyon.
Yeah.
And my aunt had a restaurant. So not only I grew in the restaurant, but also when we did family reunions, it used to be either in one of the restaurants from my aunt or from my parents. So I was completely immersed in the restaurant industry from I guess 2 years old. Yeah.
And were you doing front of house particularly, or a bit of everything?
Well, I did a catering school, and I started as a chef.
Right.
In fact, my first job was as a commis in a Michelin-starred restaurant, and that's how I started my career. I did during the catering school. I did various traineeships in the front of house, in a hotel, on the hotel side as well, and as a chef. But my first job was as a chef, and I wanted to become a chef. But with the time, I thought it'd be good because I always wanted to have a restaurant.
Yeah,
it'd be good to have a good insight of every aspect of the restaurant's trade.
Yeah.
So I worked as a receptionist in a hotel and then front of the house in restaurants as well. But I've always loved the kitchen side of our industry. So I started quite early as a chef, as I said, and then went to Vivier, which is near Switzerland.
Yeah.
Palaces there, and then moved to England at the age of 22. The intention was initially to learn English and to have this experience working abroad.
Yeah.
And I kind of fell in love with England and what was happening at the time. We mentioned early on it was just the beginning of the gastronomy in England at the time. I remember we had to ask my parents to send us some cheese. We couldn't find cheese.
No
Sorry,
way.
Patrick, what year was this about?
You had to go to Harrods to buy some.
No.
So you had to go to Soho, to the only coffee shop, espresso shop you could find. It was quite unbelievable, and how fast it changed after that as well.
So was this sort of early 90s or late 80s or?
91.
91, okay. Wow.
That's when I moved to UK. I had already my daughter Chloe. She was 2 years old, so I was a very young dad.
Yeah.
With, I guess, some responsibilities as well, because I had already a family. So I had no choice but to very quickly grow and become independent and try to have enough income to provide for the family.
So when you say you want to grow, where did you choose to work? Did you choose to work somewhere, or you just found a job? Or
I actually found a job before leaving France,
Yeah.
and started at the Gavroche,
right,
which
that was
free Michelin star at the time.
Mhm.
I worked briefly with Sylvana,
Right.
which I think is your guest
That's right. Yeah.
podcast,
And
and that was quite a great experience for me as well, working in a free Michelin star. With all what I remember from there is that it was very old school and quite strict. But then this is, I guess, also quite important to have all those rules in the restaurants. So I guess that stayed a little bit with me.
In regards to the free Michelin star, so you didn't have a free Michelin star experience before, am I right?
No, I worked in a Michelin star restaurant in France before.
But in a free Michelin star?
Not in free Michelin star, but Michelin star 1 and 2 Michelin star restaurants.
So did you find it very difficult to adapt to a free Michelin star environment in a country which is not yours?
No, I guess what was the most difficult for me was the language barrier. Saying that there were a lot of French and Italians working at the Gavroche, and I guess that's why I stayed there.
Yeah.
My first intention was really to improve on my English, and I didn't see myself improving a lot. So I looked for another job, and that's where Conran Restaurant were just starting at the time, and they were recruiting for one of the new restaurants they opened, Le Pont de la Tour, just next to Tower Bridge. I applied for a head waiter's position there, but I didn't speak very well English at the time, and I remember just learning by heart all the books I could read about doing an interview and how to reply to those questions. And I guess I just rolled out all the things I've learned, and it worked. So, but it was still very challenging then thereafter, because as a head waiter, you had to manage commis and chef de rang.
Yeah.
And so I had no choice but to very quickly learn English. And there I was working with Australians, Irish people, English people as well. So I very rapidly picked up on the English.
Nice. You became manager there, didn't you?
I stayed at Le Pont de la Tour, I guess, 7 years or 8 years.
Wow.
And became assistant manager, and then general manager of the Gastrodome, so which included the 4 restaurants there.
Yeah.
And food shop as well, and the wine store. So that was very challenging, and
it's quite a big operation by the sound of it. I mean, presumably you didn't have all of the skills you needed at the time. So how did you approach that?
Well, I did a lot of management courses there, and that was the great thing about Conran Restaurants.
Yeah.
Is, on one hand, they really interested people no matter their age, because I was very young.
Yeah.
But then they provided with training. I was actually quite inspired by Terence Conran, and that's why I started working with the group. He brought really especially with my French background, where it was quite traditional.
Yeah.
He brought this into the restaurants, and I love that approach of making the restaurant more than just a food and wine scene, but it's also a scene where you really go out. And everything had to be right, from the setting, the decor, all the customers' facility was like going out to a show, really.
Yeah.
And that's what I really enjoyed, and that inspired me working at Terence Conran Restaurants. And I really enjoyed also working with people from all different nationalities, and that was really mind-opening. And I guess how you start management is to try to get experience from all the others, and make your own mind of how you feel the best way would be, and from what you learn as well into all those management courses to go forward. So that was really interesting. The Pont de la Tour had an amazing wine list with other references. And I was always keen on wine from the very early age, actually. One of the things we used to do with my cousins and cousins when we were meeting at my parents' restaurant or my aunt's restaurant, we always went on tasting wines at a very early age. So
very nice.
Lovely.
My aunt was a chef, but she was also sommelier. And so was my dad. So I had always a very keen interest into the wine. And the Pont de la Tour, I worked with Joël Marty, which was the head sommelier there. We had this amazing wine list. James Payne, I don't know if you...
Yeah, I know. I remember those names,
Those names. We had the amazing experience of... welcoming Tony Blair and Bill Clinton also at the time. No, it was just fantastic.
It was one of the places to be at the time, wasn't it? That the Pont de la Tour. It was at the top of his game, I think, in those days.
It was it was very good. Very busy as well. It's quite amazing how busy the restaurant was all year round. And so at the time, the Conran was opening another restaurant, and that's how I met Chris Galvin. And I guess they wanted to set up a very high-standing restaurant at the time as an icon for the group. And they approached for this opening, and that was the next person that really inspired me was Chris Galvin. We became friends. He was just amazing with people generally, and in his job, completely committed. And we very quickly got the Michelin star there after 1 year of opening, and that was. And I don't think actually Terence Conran wanted to have that Michelin star, so it wasn't. He just wanted to have a very high-standing restaurant. But for us, it was definitely one of our goals, and I think already became certainly one of the restaurants to build well very quickly. You worked yourself with Chris Galvin at the time.
Yeah, he was a very inspiring man too. Yeah. One of the best chefs I've ever worked with, for sure. Tell us a bit about the importance of service, and you've told us about your career, but why is service so important to you? You know, you take it so seriously. It's just, I'd like you to tell us about that.
Yeah, that's what I heard in your introduction. But I don't know. It's difficult to. I think the details are important, and the service has to be personal, and just not something you learn by heart and replicate to the guests. So I think that's what we try to do, is to, by giving the most knowledge as possible to the team. Knowing all the wines, knowing all the cheese, all the food description, knowing all the ingredients, then that gives you the knowledge and the assurance.
Yeah, you used to say knowledge is power.
Yeah, then you can reply to any of the guest question. You feel good in what you're doing, and you can then be natural, and that's what the people are looking for. When guests are dining in our restaurants, they want to have people approachable and natural, that not necessarily playing an act, but really enjoying what they do, and passionate about their jobs. So
that is something I certainly learned working for you. Is the level of detail and the attention to detail was just incredible. I mean, where did that come from? Is that from the Gavroche, or just your experience in France, or because you were relentless on the details?
I guess you learn all your experiences, and you try and take the things that matter the most to you. And I was manager quite young, like you, David, actually. Yeah. And obviously, you don't have all the answers, and you try always to do your best. You learn later that maybe you haven't taken the right decision, but yeah. I've always tried to lead by example.
Yeah.
To lead by example and to give my best, and that's what I guess I expect also from my teams.
Yeah, you always demanded the best from everybody, and nobody could drop their level at any moment, and I always admired that.
But can I ask you something, Patrick? So you mentioned a lot about giving knowledge, but how do you ensure that your staff is knowledgeable? Because some practical tips, perhaps, for someone who's listening.
Well, in fact, I don't know if you remember, David, but we did put together like a WSCT internal course at the Ori at the time.
Yeah. And, I still have the files at home with all the paperwork from your trainings, and it is huge.
And we actually even had people from Chris's team that joined in. So we had chefs come in and did the training with them. I think that's the most important, to provide those training. That's what was your question, Melania? Sorry.
So my question was, how do you ensure that the staff is knowledgeable? I mean, do you, for example, repeat the dishes during briefing? You make some tests to your staff?
Nowadays, here in France, the way we work is that we have briefings, like most people do in restaurants now, where we review all the menus, all the wines we have by the glass. We obviously have the guest list as well. We have built databases with all our customers' habits, likes and dislikes, allergies and intolerance. So we review all of this, so that when we start the service, we're quite comfortable, and things just then roll out. Obviously, you have to repeat basics also in the briefings, because things tend to be forgotten or to slip a little bit, and that's what briefings are there for. But mostly to provide with the knowledge. I think it's the importance today, and that's what we try and do here. It's to use the technology as well. Everyone has telephones now, iPhones, and we share the knowledge through drives that are dedicated to the food descriptions or to the wine descriptions, and obviously for the guests as well. We have our reception, our computer database that we use to get to know better our guests. So.
Right. But for example, like in the rapport with the chef that you have, so for example, does the staff like taste the dishes and, I don't know, you explain ingredients, or the chef comes out and explain?
Yeah, I think that's very important. Every time we have new dishes come out, then we have the dish to share, and then we do food and wine matching, as you probably do. And you cannot do a food and wine matching if you haven't tasted the dish. You cannot describe a dish if you haven't tasted the dish. So it's very important. So every Wednesday when we start the week, we have a weekly menu. So we test all of those dishes to do the food and wine matching and to be able to describe them. And every time we change dishes on the degustation or the a la carte, then the chef comes out. But we also have the chef de partie that comes out, or the person in charge of the section. So if it's, it could be the pastry chef, if it's a dessert, or chef de partie on the hot dish or on the cold dish that comes out and explains this dish. And the chef is always there in the background, but he also tries to put people forward so that they can pass on. Yeah.
So how do you build and motivate your front of house teams? What do you look for in you have a style of service, obviously, and you have a group of people that you employ. You must is it experience you look for? Do you train them your own way? I mean,
so we try as much as we can to do this briefing as detailed as possible. That's how we keep up the daily training. We have a very thorough induction pack or book. That is a little bit of our Bible.
Is that something you built up over the years, or?
Sorry?
Is that something you built up over the years and refined?
Exactly, and that we review every year because things might change in restaurant. Nothing is set, and actually, that's one thing I learned through my years. Is I do tend to listen a lot to people's suggestions. And everyone has very good ideas, and that's something we take into account, and the service does evolve this way as well. So we have this very thorough induction pack that we always go back to as a reference. We like to go out of restaurants a lot. We are very lucky to be surrounded by vineyards. So that's one of the things we do, and actually we try and involve the chefs as well. When we go out, twice a year we go to a wine degustation, and the whole team is there, the entire kitchen and the entire front of house. And we usually go for a meal after that. It's always quite rewarding to be together and outside of the restaurants. But also we try and involve our suppliers. I know the chefs likes to take them to the fishmonger or to visit the lady that grows our herbs or flowers. We go and see the maître fromager quite regularly. We putting together a training on coffee with our supplier that's coming up next. But as the best trainings I found is when we actually go out to the restaurants,
right,
and get the team together with a different approach. It's we always get very good feedback on that.
Nice. What about the efficiency of your service? You used to micromanage at the Orrery. Do you still do that with the details? And how do you ensure that the team is working to the efficient standard that you set?
Well, I guess I have passed that on to the people I'm working with, my managers.
Right.
And it's for them now to carry out all of that. I'm here more in the background today.
Yeah.
And I trust. I guess I trust these people.
Yeah.
And they're doing the best they can to and they embrace as well. I suppose what the Vivier is about. or Soleil are other restaurants. The chef is very important as well in that compilation, because I think that the service can only be as good as the relation is between the kitchen and the restaurant. And I think it's a very important part. I was a chef trained, and when I came back to France, I actually started at Le Vivier as a head chef. I left management.
Oh my God!
Put my chef's gears on, and came back to the kitchen. So I have a very close relationship with how it works in the kitchen and what the chef can expect. And I also have that knowledge of how it works on the front of the house.
Yeah.
And I think the combination of the two makes it something quite special for the guests. And quite often the guests say, we can really feel that the people that work here are enjoying what they do, and are passionate. But that also comes because of that relation with the kitchen.
One thing that I really love about your job is I've been looking at Le Vivier restaurants reviews, and I've always seen that you reply to guests when they leave a reviews. And they're always like so tailor-made that you kind of really make them feel, important as they should feel.
I think it's one thing you have to do today is to be. We mentioned technology, but I think that also the social media and the websites, all the interaction you can have, all the visibility you have on the internet, you have to be very much on top of that, and that's become part of our job today. The communication is very important, and we have to reply to all our guests. Yeah, I suppose it's an evolution, and I think it will continue this way. So I think as a manager now, we are, and actually most of the replies are done by the manager.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something to do with the comments about the food, then we always involve the chef as well. So they give their feedback,
nice.
and we translate it back to the guests.
Okay, I would like to mention something because you seem so enthusiastic about wine service and also like the role of a sommelier. So do you have a sommelier at Le Vivier restaurant, at your restaurant?
Yes, we have a very charming sommelier like you, Melania.
Thank you.
And I think it brings a different level to the experience in a restaurant for the guests. If you looked at our critics on TripAdvisor and others, quite often we have mentioned about how nice the relation with the sommelier was, and how professional, and how important it is to have the right food and wine matching. So, and I think the sommelier in our during a service, they have a different contact with the guest, different to the one from a head waiter or a manager, because there's a kind of intimacy that in choosing the right wine with the right dishes depending on their taste. It's so important, and it's definitely something. When I left the kitchen at Le Vivier, then I took on the sommelier's job as well as managing the restaurant, and it was the most enjoyable moments. And if I can open and share a moment with the guests, that's I always do that.
Yeah.
Even today, it's because it's it's something on top of, and that brings this extra relation you can have with the guests.
Yeah, sure. I agree on the level of intimacy of a sommelier with the guest. And one thing that I'm really curious in asking you is, in a sommelier, do you value technical service as much as, these people engagement skills and the personality of someone?
I think personality is very important. We work in quite a small environment, a little bit like Michelin, I suppose. And I think what I value most in the sommelier's approach is the knowledge of the service. As much as I'd expect from somebody working in the service to have the knowledge of the basics of the sommelier. But the way I see the sommelier and the service interact has to be very complementary. And I think it's important that when you come to a table, if, for example, the sommelier is there opening a table, then the waiter should be able to put down the plate and for the sommelier to describe the dish, so not to interrupt in what the sommelier is doing at the time. And for me, that's very important. Or if we're clearing a table, if it's a table of 6, somebody comes to clear the table, the sommelier is around, and then you take the last 2 plates. Or the last 3 plates. So that interaction is very important between, and it's one big team. As much as when, for instance, we have a gourmet menu with 6 or 8 dishes with food and wine matching. When the waiter resets the table, then he should be able to read the service and double up the glasses at the time, so that, knowing that the sommelier is busy somewhere else, then you should be able to read that and to do that. So that's very important. The personality is, for me, probably the most important in people. And when I recruit people, I always look at their background and their experience, but more so I try and detect how well they will interact with the others that are already here in the team. If they're sociable, if I think they will, fit in, rather than having somebody that has so much experience, but maybe will create bad feelings in the team.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely.
Good. Nice. So, Patrick, tell us about your current business, Le Vivier.
So we opened Le Vivier in 2005. We've got about 50 covers inside and about the same outside.
And which part of France? Which part of France is it?
We are in the south of France, in Provence, in a town called Ile-sur-la-Sorgue. Which is quite famous for its antiquities. It's quite famous in France and even worldwide, because we've got a lot of Italian Americans and people coming for the antiquities. This, as I said, I started as a chef here. We very quickly got the Michelin star after the opening. We got the Michelin star in 2008. And it's been 50.
Is that while you were cooking, Patrick?
Yeah, when I was cooking.
Wow.
And it's been 15 years now since we had the Michelin star. The Michelin guides just came out early March, so we're delighted to be still part of it. So we've got 12. We only 12 people working here. 6 in the kitchen, 7 in the kitchen with a porter, and the rest from the house, with a manager, a sommelier, and then we've got a trainee sommelier as well, and 3 from the house staff, which are chef de rang, I suppose. Yeah. And we got a trainee as well in front of house. So yeah, the restaurant is quite busy from April to October with pretty much a full house during that period, and much quieter during the winter season, which is a little bit of the tough thing we have to deal with, and the challenge. And that's where we try and do special events with wine dinner. We invite winemakers and trying to bring in extra activity during the slower season. And as I mentioned to you earlier, we opened another restaurant now 1 year ago called Solaire, which is a bistro version of Le Vivier. It's an open kitchen restaurant with barbecue, Japanese barbecue, where we do big cuts of meat, whole fish, tapas style to share. There's a set menu. There's a big emphasis on vegetarian dishes on there. We always have a vegetarian offer at the Solaire. Nice wine lists. It's only about 60 references there, but a nice selection of smaller winemakers. Natural wines, mostly organic. Nice selection of wines by the glass, and cocktails, of course, which has become now also one part of the sommelier's job. Which wasn't necessary at the time. So no, Le Vivier is my baby, and the other baby is Solaire now. So.
Amazing.
And Patrick, I'm going to ask you a question that I've asked David as well. What, if you need to say your 3 non-negotiables, what would they be?
Wow, non-negotiable. In people working.
People working us. For you, yes, exactly.
People working in our mind. I guess I'm looking for people that are honest, that I can trust, that have a personality and that are sociable, and that can. I don't want to create any conflict, so I'm really looking for those people that will be able to adapt. And that are sociable, and I guess people that are committed, involved, and that share our vision, what we try to do in restaurants.
I love that. I love how you kind of turn around my question into, like, instead of say that they don't have to do this, and that, how you you turn it into positive.
That's the experience, David.
Amazing.
That's how I changed.
But yes, but this is quite interesting, actually. So do you think that, now you're working with a new generation of waiters and waitresses and front of house in general, do you think you had to adapt your management style towards a newer, younger generation, I would say?
Yeah, that's one of our challenges, and that's what we try and do. We've actually changed the way the restaurant is open, and today we have the restaurant is closed Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday lunch. So we have 3 days off.
Wow.
During the low season in January, we actually close the restaurant on Wednesday as well. So the restaurant is only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday lunch. To try and promote a different way of approaching our industry, and I've always been quite fond to have a separate life outside all the time we spend together in the restaurant. and my family life is very important, and that's what I would like to share with everyone anyway. So that you need to be able to have a life outside your work, and that's, I guess, what the newer generation are also looking for. But the most important thing that and the biggest challenge is to try and pass on the things that are so natural for us, is the passion for our industry. But how do you translate that? How do you pass that on? How do you try to put that in their mind? Because the relation to work has changed, and people don't commit themselves as though we used to do. And that's the challenge. And I guess through our the relation we have with the suppliers and bringing the knowledge inside the restaurant, the feedback I had from the trainee, and that's very rewarding. In fact, is sometimes you tend to to put your arms down, because you think, well, how are we going to carry on if we're not finding people that. But then when we have younger people coming, the trainees that are coming, and when you take them out to the winemakers, and when you do the food and wine tastings and the food and wine matching, and they are involved, and we teach them how to taste the wine and the basics of the wine tasting. And when they give you the feedback, then that's very rewarding. And I think we're lucky we found some very good young people, and so therefore I think there's still people out there that we just need to catch them and straight away to give them the better side of our job. It is a lot of hours, it is a lot of hard work and commitment, but there are some really good sides to our job as well. So
I agree.
That's our challenge today.
Lovely.
I agree. And can I ask you something also? Do you usually treat staff like being very, wait, so let me phrase this nicely. With a really good, how can I say? I mean, do you tend to tell staff off? I mean, if they're doing something that you don't particularly like, how do you drive them to come back to your good side?
Well, I think what we're trying to say is
you should ask my staff. But,
no, but I think it's true that people don't respond in the same way to the negative feedback as they used to. Because if I was working for you in the past and you would tell me I was doing something wrong, I would just try to correct it the next day. Where it doesn't necessarily work that way anymore, because when people like to respond, people tend to respond more to positivity than they do to negativity. I find.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree with you, David. And that's what we need. Well, that's how we've changed. I've changed anyway.
Yeah.
And trying always to look for the good side of people and encourage them that way.
And young people, as you said earlier, they do surprise you, and especially when you are positive with them, and you get a lot more out of them for sure.
But saying that, I think and exactly we have changed in the management, and that's also part of our role, is to evolve and to change.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's always very good. We talked earlier about having this induction back and setting the rules in your restaurant, and people have to embrace that as they come in the restaurant, knowing what they can do, what they cannot do, in the order of service as well. So that then once we have that put down, you can work on the better side of people.
Yeah.
And make them involved, and there's nothing more rewarding, I think, for us, for managers or for restaurant owners, to see people that have come through the restaurants and that have evolved, and that they're moving on and to better things and to open their own restaurants and taking a little bit of their experience with them and trying to pass that on to others afterwards. So that's the very rewarding side.
Nice. Melania?
And for example, like, so you give them the Bible, right? So everything that basically people should follow and should not follow. Do you give them the Bible before hiring them, or you do it just after hiring them?
We actually send them. It's a file that we share with them as part of the hiring process. Okay. So they do get the information, and once they've started in a restaurant, then after a week, we actually sit down and review the entire document with them. Because a lot of things that you read are probably very unclear to you before you start in the restaurant because you don't know the place.
Yeah.
But once you've started working the place, then a lot of things make sense. So it's much easier to wait for a few days, let them read this induction before, and then go through it thoroughly with them.
Makes sense. So are you ready for our 6 question fire round?
Yeah, let's go.
Great. So basically what we're looking for is just one sentence or one question or one word answer. I start?
Ready?
Fantastic. So Patrick, what is your lazy dinner look like?
Lazy dinner look like? One word, one answer. And I'm not allowed to think. Oh my God. The one from last night, it was a pizza, but I shouldn't say that.
I'm happy with that. I'm Italian. David said cheese, so pizza is great.
Yeah.
How is your pizza?
It was okay.
Okay. Now, what is your favorite book?
The one I'm reading right now, it's a book that I found. I went to visit my parents not long ago, and I got actually one reply, one word. The dictionary from Alexandre Dumas, the Dictionnaire de la gastronomie d'Alexandre Dumas. It's like a little bit of the Escoffier style.
Okay.
I'm sure it will be on David's list now.
But the little story is that I went in my parents' cellar quite recently, and my father gave me a nice bottle of Perrier Jouet Belle Époque 1979. Ooh. And I saw that box with very old books, and I started looking into them. So I took some of the books back. And
did you drink the Perrier Jouet?
And the Perrier Jouet, I actually shared that with my staff. Yeah. Nice. We had a dinner not long ago with all the team, and we tried the 79 Perrier Jouet Belle Époque.
Wow.
Which was quite amazing, because you'd expect the wine to be dead, but in fact it was still there, and great experience.
Yeah.
And especially for the younger people, because the wine is older than them.
Exactly. I mean, I love aged champagne is my guilty pleasure if I can afford it. Then, what is your desert island wine? Desert island. What is your desert island wine?
Desert island wine. Alsace, Riesling, or Gewürz.
We will get along, Patrick. Right. Now, what is your biggest inspiration in the industry as a person?
A fond friend of mine, Chris Garvin, was definitely an inspiration. And I mentioned earlier Terence Conran for other reasons.
Yeah.
Good. I thought you were saying them. And outside the industry, do you have someone we are inspiring to?
My wife.
I love that answer. Beautiful. Okay, and I don't have any more questions, have I?
No, all good.
I think we're fine. Yes.
Thank you very much for your time, Patrick. Amazing.
Patrick, that was so inspiring, honestly. I mean, David told me so much about you. And it's just amazing to finally have a chat with you.
Well, it was my pleasure, really. And I hope you will come and visit. That's maybe part of your next team trip. I hope.
Yeah, why not?
But you will be well treated, and I hope you can come and visit. We have a fantastic region, great wines, fantastic producers, food, vegetables, flowers, everything. We need to show you around. So I hope you come and visit, and we can maybe share a Riesling from Alsace.
I wouldn't complain, Patrick.
Yeah. Okay. I have to go back to the cellar to see if there's one there.
Let's do it, yeah.
We go to Medler's cellar as well to find something good.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you for listening to Drive for Service podcast. Follow us on Instagram @MedlarChelsea and make sure you like and subscribe for future episodes.